Hey everyone, welcome to the first Sonic Comic News video of 2012. Now, for some of you that don't know what Sonic Comic News is, it's a little video series that I've been doing throughout 2011, a little bit 2010. Basically, when I talk about some of the news items going on associated and related to the Sonic the Hedgehog comic book published by Archie Comics. Now, getting into some of the news, a lot of news has definitely gone on in 2011. There's no doubt about that. I mean, from the very beginning of 2011 to currently right now here in 2012, a lot of news has gone on, and it does have to do a lot with the comic. You see, Genesis was the big summer event that writer Ian Flynn had created for the summer of 2011. Well, Genesis, in the eyes of many fans, got a mixed reaction. But apparently it was successful enough to where, even before it officially ended, they were planning on bringing out what is known as a graphic novel. Now, a graphic novel, or a hard novel, if you will, is basically a special comic book, if you will. It's basically a hardcover comic book consisting of old stories. For example, you've seen a lot of those comic books, a lot of the Marvel and DC comic books. In fact, you can watch one of my videos where I talk about one of my more recent videos where I show what graphic novels and stuff that I have. A graphic novel, sometimes can be depicted as a small thing or a huge thing. And in this case, it's a comic-sized graphic novel. And again, what it does is it takes all the stories, all the issues that were related to the story, and puts them together in one book. Marvel has done it with a variety of their franchises, like Spider-Man, X-Men, Thor, Daredevil, the list goes on. DC has done the same thing with Superman, Supergirl, Batman, Justice League, Green Hornet, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman. Again, the list goes on those that they did this way. Now, would this be the first time Archie Comics has done it? Well, if it's for one huge story arc, yes. But is it the first time they've ever released graphic novels themselves? No. Archie Comics has, as a matter of fact, been doing it for quite some time. They've released a graphic novel series, a series of graphic novels known as the Americana series, basically showcasing a lot of the stories from the very beginning of the Archie Comics publication throughout the decades. And it's that it was printed, basically. So it's not the first time they've done a graphic novel, but it is the first time they've released a graphic novel which consists and features one story arc in which all the issues that the graphic novel is based on, was associated with or were part of. So all the Genesis stories, every part of Genesis throughout the summer has been, will be, and has been, I don't know if has been yet or will be, released as a graphic novel. So basically that means all your issues of Genesis, if you don't want to dig them out and read them again, if you like the story, all you have to do is just pick up the graphic novel and there you go. They're doing the same thing with the Sonic Universe story arcs that they have had. Like the Shadow one they've done, like the first story arc they did. They've done that one. They're doing one on Mobius 30 years later. They're doing one on Silver. They're doing one on the Suppression Squad. The list goes on. The list goes on, folks. They're doing one on Knuckles. And again, like I say, the list goes on. So that is one of the news items coming out, is the fact that Genesis, the so-called big summer event of 2011 for the Archie Sonic comic book, which like I said, got mixed reactions, is getting a graphic novel. Now the aftermath of it really was kind of a mixed bag as well. You see, the aftermath of it was the fact that some fans liked what happened, some fans didn't. And some fans were kind of in the middle. And basically what I mean by that is the fans that were in the middle, they liked it, but they're going to see what happens next. They're not going to deal with it any more than that. They like what's going on, but they're just going to see what happens next. You know, not get in the middle of this whole, oh, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is right deal. And then there are those that don't like it, but are also in the middle and want to see what's going to happen next. And that would be like me. You know, I don't like what's happened, but I'm someone that's in the middle, like, let's just see where he takes it from here. My situation, my strategy, and some people may think it's dumb on my part, is to subscribe to the issues, resubscribe to the issues, but don't open them until it's all said and done. Now, what am I talking about? What is the one thing that a lot of fans that are kind of split down the middle that like and don't like? The robotization of Princess Sally. That's right. Now you might say to yourself, wait a minute, Princess Sally got roboticized? Yeah, she got roboticized, in case some of you don't know. She got roboticized as sort of a sacrificial thing at the end of 230. Basically, according to what I've heard, or through summaries and people reviewing the issue and all that, Sally noticed, along with Nicole, that they were running out of time and they had to divert the roboticizer beam as quickly as they could. And the only place they could divert it was to the death egg in their area. So what happened? Knowing that they were running out of time, Sally said, you know, look, I've got to do what I've got to do. She said goodbye to her friend. Boom! Next thing you know, at the end of the issue, she's roboticized. But now, the clock ticks, if you will. The clock ticks, if you will. Because a lot of fans want to know exactly how far Ian Flynn is going to go with this whole story arc. And I'm not just talking to fans that are against it, I'm talking about the fans that are for it. Kind of like both sides. And even those in the middle that like and don't like what's going on, but I'm not going to, you know, argue what's happened. You know, we want to see where he's going to take this. Overall, the overall fan base basically wants to know whether he's going to take this whole situation, whether we like it or not. As a matter of fact, the last image that a lot of people saw in the more recent issue, which was 232, in the main story, was Eggman taking a blowtorch to Sally in her mechanized roboticized form. And, you know, kind of doing some tweaks on her and all that. So it makes you wonder if Ian might throw in an element or a surprise. We don't know that. But this is something a lot of fans are just waiting to see where he goes from with here. Because the major news item out of it, according to several sources, is that Ian Flynn plans to make this story arc double the length and double the size of Endgame. That's right, you heard me right, Endgame. Now you might say to yourself, there's no way he could do that. Endgame was one of a kind. Yeah, Endgame was one of a kind. I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that whatsoever. I was just checking my time there. But like I said, I'm not denying that. Endgame was one of a kind. But you got to realize, Ian Flynn is in the categories of those writers, whether we like the writer or not, that always wants to outdo the previous writers that they succeeded. And speaking of the previous writers, they too are in the news lately, have come back into the news lately, and I'll get to that in a second. And I'll get to that in a moment. But like I said, Ian Flynn's plan, according to several sources, is to make this story bigger and more grander, I guess, than Endgame. Now again, I know a lot of you might say there's no way that's possible. That's true, it's not possible at all. In the eyes of many. It's not really possible. Because I will agree, and I'm sure those that like what's happened over the past few months, and those that don't, will all agree. You can't top a classic as good as Endgame. You can't. It's not possible. Now, several other fans that I've spoken with, whether it's through message boards or video or whatever, have all agreed, several fans, not all of them, but several fans have all agreed that Ian Flynn is doing way too much, basically. He's doing way too much, and he's trying to make something that he probably doesn't really have the skills to make. One source, one fan that I spoke with, or I read about, I read a response from, and one of the topics that I sometimes look in on and kind of respond to, said that what Ian Flynn's trying to do is make an epic. He's trying to make an epic story, but maybe he's not the kind of writer that should be doing it. Now, everybody has agreed that Ian Flynn does a great job when it comes to some of his stories in Sonic Universe, and they feel that maybe that's his calling. Now, several others may also admit that maybe it's because he's taken on a lot more. And that is common with comic book writers. But when people feel that maybe the reason things are not going the way they want, or maybe not going the way that makes sense, is maybe because the writer's taking on more than they should. Now, speaking of writers, there are a couple of new writers that have been brought in onto the book. They did the recent backup story to issue 232, and people actually liked it. Some people did find flaws in it, but some people actually liked it. Now, speaking of writers I should say, and I should say past Sonic writers, that brings us to Ken Penders. Now, we all know Ken Penders recently has been having this court thing going on against Archie Comics, has this case against Archie Comics and Sega. Well, mostly Archie Comics. Now, apparently he's supposed to have a court case this month, or hearing this month, or next month, or sometime in between, to get this settled, possibly. But here's the catch. When and where that takes place, we don't really know. Some people probably have an idea. I think it's between this month and February. I'm not really sure. But here's the unique thing. Here's the cherry on top of your sundae. Ken Penders, apparently, in the eyes of many fans, feels confident enough that not only is he going to win this case and probably win the rights back to his characters, as well as win the royalties that are owed to him, but apparently he feels so confident about it that he's already releasing teaser posters or teaser pictures of the characters for his new Guardian series based off, apparently, the whole Knuckles concept. Now, Ken Penders, ironically, according to these topics, and I've read some of them myself, Ken Penders apparently does not acknowledge characters like Julie Sue, Linda, and Lala Sue as echidnas. He doesn't consider them that. And the designs are almost similar, but completely different. The one that really looks different is Linda's. Now, a lot of fans feel as though Ken is actually getting to borderline insanity, and he's basically tooting his own horn before he can really blow it. So Ken Penders, apparently, by releasing these teaser pictures and some details of what's going on and who they are, apparently, like I said, feels confident enough he's going to win this case. I think, honestly, it's a bad move on his part. It's a really bad move. He's got to watch what he does, because it's going to probably backfire in his face. So, but that is all the news that has occurred over the past year or so, and recently in the early portion of this year. So, comment down below. Tell me what you think of the news that I've given you here on the first edition of Sonic Comic News for 2012, and I'll talk to you all later.